The smell of disinfectant mixed with the faint scent of lavender air freshener hit me the moment I pushed through the hospital's automatic doors. My heels clicked against the linoleum floor as I half walked, half ran toward the cardiac ICU on the 4th floor. Then one day, 3 years after my divorce, I walked into a bank, checked the balance on a card I'd sworn never to touch, and froze completely. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My phone had buzzed during the middle of a client presentation. I was showing architectural renderings for a community center renovation when I felt the vibration in my blazer pocket. Once, twice, 3 times. I ignored it. Maya Chen, junior architect, didn't take personal calls during meetings. I'd worked too hard to build my reputation to let anything derail it now. The 4th buzz made my boss, Richard, glance at me with raised eyebrows. I mouthed sorry and silenced my phone without looking, but when it started ringing out loud 30 seconds later, my stomach dropped. I grabbed it. Nina's name flashed on the screen. My best friend knew better than to call during work hours unless something was seriously wrong. "I'm so sorry," I said to the clients. "I need to take this." I stepped into the hallway, already knowing. Somehow, I already knew. "Maya." Nina's voice was tight, controlled. She was trying not to scare me, which scared me more. "Your dad, he collapsed at the library. They're taking him to Mount Sinai. Heart attack." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. My father, Robert Chen, had been a high school English teacher for 32 years before retiring 5 years ago. He spent his days now volunteering at the local library, reading to kids, helping with homework. He was 68, stubborn, proud, and the only parent I had left after Mom died when I was 12. I grabbed my coat and bag, mumbled something to Richard about a family emergency, and ran. The subway felt like it took hours. I kept my phone pressed to my ear as Nina stayed on the line, feeding me updates from the hospital. She'd been nearby when it happened, had ridden with him in the ambulance. "He's in surgery now," she said. "They're doing an emergency bypass. Is he going to be okay?" Silence. Too long. "Nina, is he going to be okay?" "The doctor said the next 48 hours are critical." "But Maya, there's something else. The insurance. His retirement plan insurance. It's not going to cover everything." I closed my eyes. Of course it wasn't. How much? They're estimating $180,000. The surgery, the ICU stay, the medications, the recovery care. His insurance will cover maybe 40%. $180,000. I had $15,000 in my savings account. $15,000 that had taken me 3 years to save, living in a cramped studio apartment in Brooklyn, taking the subway instead of cabs, making coffee at home instead of stopping at Starbucks. When I got to the hospital, Nina was waiting in the cardiac wing. She hugged me hard, and I realized I was shaking. "He's still in surgery," she said. "Come on, let's sit." The waiting area was painted in those colors hospitals think are soothing, soft blues and grays that just reminded you that you were in a place where people fought to stay alive. I sank into a plastic chair that was somehow both too hard and too soft. "The doctor will talk to you after the surgery," Nina said. She squeezed my hand. "He's strong, Maya. He's going to pull through." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. My father had raised me alone after Mom died. He'd worked 2 jobs to put me through college, never once complaining. He'd been at my architecture school graduation, sitting in the front row, crying with pride. When I'd gone through my divorce 3 years ago, he'd been the one to help me move into my studio apartment, to remind me that I was strong enough to rebuild my life. He'd never asked me for anything, never accepted help from anyone. Pride ran deep in the Chen family. And now he was on an operating table, and I had no idea how I was going to pay to keep him alive. The surgery took 6 hours. When Dr. Patel finally emerged, still in his scrubs, my heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. "The surgery went well," he said, and I nearly collapsed with relief. "We were able to repair the blockages, but he's in critical condition. The next week will be crucial. We'll need to keep him in the ICU for at least 5 days, then move him to cardiac recovery for another week, maybe 2. "Can I see him?" "Soon. He's in recovery now." Dr. Patel's expression shifted, became more businesslike. "Miss Chen, I know this is a difficult time, but the hospital's financial office will need to discuss the payment plan with you. Your father's insurance will cover a portion, but there will be significant out-of-pocket costs. There it was. How much? They'll give you the exact figures, but you're looking at around $110,000 after insurance. My mouth went dry. And if I can't pay? Dr. Patel's expression was kind but firm. The hospital will work with you on a payment plan, but Miss Chen, your father will need follow-up care, medications, possibly more procedures down the line. This is just the beginning. I met with the financial counselor an hour later. She was a middle-aged woman with tired eyes who had clearly had this conversation 1,000 times before. We can offer you a payment plan, she said, typing on her computer. But we'll need a 30% deposit up front to continue treatment. That's $33,000. When? Within the next 48 hours. I left her office and went to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and tried very hard not to throw up. $33,000 in 48 hours. I called my bank. I called every credit card company I had. I called 3 different loan companies. My credit was good, but not good enough to secure that kind of money that quickly. The best offer I got was a $12,000 loan at a 23% interest rate. I called my boss, Richard, and asked for an advance on my salary. He was sympathetic but firm. The firm's policy didn't allow advances over $2,000. I looked at my apartment listing, wondering if I could somehow sell my lease. But even if I could, it wouldn't be fast enough. By midnight, I was sitting in the ICU waiting room, watching my father through the glass window. He looked so small in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed. His face was pale, peaceful in sedation. Nina sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "Maya," she said quietly, "I know you don't want to hear this." I knew exactly what she was going to say. "Don't. The card James gave you. No. You're going to let your pride kill your father?" I turned to her, and I could feel tears burning in my eyes. "You don't understand. Then make me understand." I took a shaky breath. The day we signed the divorce papers, James pressed a black card into my hand. Right there in the lawyer's office, in front of everyone. He said, "Just in case you ever need anything." And I threw it back in his face, Nina. I threw it at him and told him I didn't need his guilt money. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of rebuilding my life. 3 years of proving I could make it on my own. If I use that card now, it's like admitting I was wrong, that I do need him, that I'm not strong enough to handle my own life. Nina was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Do you know what your father told me once? After your mom died, his friends wanted to help. They wanted to pay for things, cover expenses. He refused everything. He told me that accepting help wasn't weakness, but refusing help when people you love needed you to accept it, that was pride. And pride," he said, "was just fear dressed up fancy." I looked at my father through the glass. "Where did you even put the card?" Nina asked. "Bottom drawer of my dresser. Under some old sweaters. Have you ever looked at it?" "Not once." "Then you don't even know if there's anything on it. For all you know, it's empty. James could have canceled it years ago." She was right. I didn't know. I'd been so determined never to use it that I'd never even thought about it. "Come on," Nina said, standing up. "You can't do anything here tonight. He's sedated. Go home, get the card, and at least check. If there's nothing on it, then we'll figure something else out. But if there is..." She trailed off. I looked at my father one more time, his chest rising and falling with the ventilator. "Okay," I whispered. The subway ride back to Brooklyn felt surreal. It was past 1 a.m., and the car was mostly empty, except for a few late-night workers and a couple of college kids who'd clearly been drinking. I stared at my reflection in the dark window, barely recognizing myself. Maya Chen, who'd sworn she'd never need anyone after her divorce. Maya Chen, who'd been so convinced that accepting help was the same as admitting defeat. My apartment was dark and cold. I'd left in such a hurry that I hadn't even thought to turn on the heat. I went straight to the bedroom, turned on the lamp, and opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. There, under a pile of sweaters I never wore, was a white envelope. My hands were shaking as I pulled it out. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened it slowly. The black card slid into my palm. It was heavier than I remembered, the weight of titanium or platinum or whatever exclusive material these cards were made from. My name was embossed on the front in silver letters, Maya Chen. There was also a note, folded once. I'd never read it before, had shoved the whole thing in the drawer without looking. I unfolded it now. The handwriting was James's, neat and precise. Maya, I know you won't want this. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but please keep it anyway. Not because you owe me anything, or because I think you can't take care of yourself. Keep it because I need to know that if something happens, if you ever need anything, it's there. I'll never ask you to use it. I'll never even mention it. But please, just keep it. James. I read it 3 times, then carefully folded it back up. The next morning, I walked into the Chase Manhattan branch, 2 blocks from my apartment. It was 9 a.m., exactly when they opened. I was wearing my most professional outfit, navy blazer, pressed slacks, heels like I was going into battle. I need to check the balance on this account, I told the banker, a young man whose name tag read Kevin. He took the card, swiped it, typed something on his computer. His eyebrows went up slightly. Let me just verify your identity, ma'am. Can I see your driver's license? I handed it over. He compared the names, typed more, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. And you'd like to know the current balance? Yes. One moment. He picked up his phone, spoke quietly to someone, then hung up. The branch manager would like to speak with you. If you'll just wait one moment. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Was the card flagged? Had James canceled it and forgotten to tell me? A woman in her 50s appeared, extending her hand. Miss Chen, I'm Patricia Morrison, branch manager. Would you mind stepping into my office? This couldn't be good. Her office was small but professional, with a window overlooking the street. She gestured for me to sit, then settled behind her desk with a practiced smile. I just wanted to personally verify this account with you, she said. We don't get many premium card holders at this branch. Your card is linked to a private wealth management account. I didn't even know if it was still active, I admitted. Oh, it's very active. In fact, there are regular deposits made to the account. She turned her monitor so I could see it. The number on the screen made my vision blur. 254,783美元17美分. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was seeing. I couldn't even finish the sentence. $2,547,883.17, Patricia said gently. The account shows regular monthly deposits of approximately $15,000 going back 3 years. Would you like me to print out a statement? I nodded, not trusting my voice. She printed several pages and slid them across the desk. I stared at the transactions. Every single month, for 36 months, a deposit of $15,000. Sometimes more. Never less. The account is in your name only, Patricia continued. You're the sole owner. There are no restrictions, no holds. You have complete access. 3 years. For 3 years, while I'd been pinching pennies and eating ramen and feeling so proud of myself for being independent, James had been depositing $15,000 a month into an account I'd sworn never to touch. Miss Chen, are you all right? Can I get you some water? I need to make a payment, I heard myself say. To Mount Sinai Hospital. $33,000. Of course. We can do that right now. 20 minutes later, I walked out of the bank with a receipt for $33,000 paid to Mount Sinai Hospital and a black card that somehow felt even heavier in my wallet. I called the hospital from the sidewalk. This is Maya Chen. I'm calling about Robert Chen's account. I was told I needed to make a deposit of $33,000. Let me check. A pause. Keys clicking. Yes, Miss Chen. We received the payment about 10 minutes ago. Your father's treatment will continue without interruption. I hung up and stood there on the corner of Broadway and West 4th, people streaming past me on their way to work, to coffee, to their normal lives where they didn't have black cards with millions of dollars that their ex-husbands had been secretly funding for 3 years. My phone buzzed. A text from Nina. Did you check? I called her instead. There was $2.5 million on it. Silence. Nina? Holy shit. He's been depositing money every month. For 3 years. $15,000 a month. Maya. Nina's voice was careful. What are you going to do? I already paid the hospital. I mean about James. I closed my eyes. I don't know. My father woke up 2 days later. I was sitting beside his bed, working on my laptop, when I heard him make a sound. I jumped up, pressed the call button for the nurse, and leaned over him. Dad? Can you hear me? His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then finding my face. He tried to speak, but the breathing tube was still in. "Don't talk," I said, tears streaming down my face. "You're okay. You're going to be okay." The nurse came in, checked his vitals, paged the doctor. Within minutes, the room was full of people, and I was ushered out to the waiting area. Dr. Patel came out an hour later, smiling. "He's doing remarkably well. We're going to keep the breathing tube in for another day, but his vitals are strong. He's a fighter. When can I see him? Give us another hour to get him settled, then you can sit with him." When they finally let me back in, my father was more alert. They'd removed the breathing tube, and though he looked exhausted, his eyes were clear. "Hi, Dad," I whispered, taking his hand. "Maya." His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. "What happened? You had a heart attack at the library. You've had bypass surgery. But you're going to be fine." He closed his eyes briefly, then looked at me. "The cost. Maya, the insurance won't cover. It's taken care of." "What?" I said. "It's taken care of. You don't need to worry about it." "How?" His hand gripped mine tighter. "You don't have that kind of money. Maya, what did you do?" I looked at his face. At the fear there. The pride that even a heart attack couldn't kill. I used the card James gave me. I watched the emotions flicker across his face. Surprise. Discomfort. And then, surprisingly, something that looked like relief. "Good," he said finally. "What?" I said, "Good. You did the right thing. But you always said..." I said a lot of stupid things about pride. He squeezed my hand weakly. 3 years, Maya. 3 years you kept that card and never used it. That's not weakness. That's strength. But knowing when to use it, that's wisdom. I felt tears welling up again. I feel like I failed. Failed? Maya, you saved my life. You put aside your pride to save your father. That's not failure. That's love. We sat in silence for a while, his hand in mine. "How much was on the card?" he asked finally. "A lot. More than you'd think. He still loves you." "Dad, that kind of money every month for 3 years? That's not guilt money. That's a man who never stopped caring." I didn't know what to say to that. That night, I went home and did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I opened my phone and looked at James's contact information. I'd never deleted it, but I'd never looked at it either. My thumb hovered over the call button. What would I even say? "Thank you? I'm sorry? Why did you do this?" Before I could talk myself out of it, I pressed call. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. I was about to hang up when he answered. "Maya?" His voice sounded shocked, disbelieving. "Is everything okay?" I used the card. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "Is it your dad? Nina told me he was in the hospital." Of course Nina had told him. Nina, who'd stayed friends with both of us, who'd probably been updating him this whole time. He had a heart attack. Surgery. He's going to be okay, but the bills. I had to use the card, James. That's what it's there for. There's $2.5 million on it. I know. You've been putting money on it every month. For 3 years. I know. Why? Another long silence. Then, can we talk in person? I'm actually in the city. I can meet you somewhere. Anywhere you want. I looked around my tiny apartment, at the life I'd built without him. There's a coffee shop on the corner of 5th and Union. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I'll be there. I barely slept that night. I kept thinking about the James I'd married, the brilliant, ambitious man who'd started a tech company in our 1-bedroom apartment. The man who'd worked 18-hour days, who'd missed dinners and birthdays and anniversaries because he was always one meeting away from the breakthrough that would change everything. The man I'd loved desperately and left anyway because I couldn't live with always being second to his dreams. At 8:55 a.m., I walked into Café Grumpy. James was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He stood when he saw me, and for a moment we just looked at each other. He looked different. Older, obviously we both were. But there was something else. The frantic energy that had always surrounded him like a force field was gone. He seemed calmer, steadier. "Hi," he said. "Hi." We sat. He pushed one of the coffees toward me. "Oat milk latte, 2 pumps vanilla." Unless you've changed? I haven't changed. He smiled slightly. Some things don't. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. James, why did you do it? He took a breath, let it out slowly. The company went public 8 months after we divorced. I'm sure you heard. I heard. I made more money than I ever imagined possible. Money that we should have made together. Money that was supposed to be our future. We were divorced. I know. But Maya, that company wouldn't exist without you. You were the one who believed in it when it was just an idea. You were the one who supported me through the first 3 years when we were eating ramen and I was pitching to every investor who'd listen. You worked 2 jobs so I could work on the company full-time. That was my choice. And giving you half of everything I made was mine. He looked at me steadily. I never wanted you to struggle. The divorce was my fault, I know that. I chose work over you, over us, but I didn't want you to pay for my mistakes, so I set up the account. $15,000 a month. It was the least I could do. I knew you'd never ask for anything. Your pride wouldn't let you, so I made sure that if you ever needed something, if there was ever an emergency, you'd have it. I almost didn't use it. I almost let Dad. My voice broke. But you did use it, and I'm so glad you did. He reached across the table, stopped just short of touching my hand. How is he? Better. Getting stronger every day. Good. I'm glad. We sat in silence for a moment, the coffee shop humming with morning conversations around us. The money is yours, James said finally. All of it. I don't want it back. I don't expect anything in return. I just want you to be okay. That's over $2 million, James. I know. And I have plenty more. The company did well. Really well. But none of it means anything if you're struggling. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the man I'd loved enough to marry, to support, to build a life with. The man I'd left because he couldn't see that I needed him to be present, not just provide. What happened to you? I asked quietly. He knew what I meant. I woke up. About 6 months after you left, I was in my office at 2 a.m., and I realized I was completely alone. The company was successful, the money was rolling in, and I had absolutely no one to share it with, no one to go home to. I'd achieved everything I thought I wanted, and I was miserable. So you changed. I tried. I hired a CEO to handle day-to-day operations. I set boundaries. I started seeing a therapist. He laughed softly. I know. James Park, in therapy. But she helped me understand that success isn't worth much if you're not successful at being human too. That's very wise. I wish I'd learned it 3 years earlier. I took a sip of my latte. It was perfect, exactly how I liked it. Of course, he remembered. I don't know what to say, James. You don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything, Maya. I'm not trying to get back together or make you feel obligated. I just wanted you to know why I did it. And to tell you that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't the husband you needed. I'm sorry I let my ambition matter more than us. And I'm sorry it took losing you to figure out what actually matters. I felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I wasn't perfect either. I should have communicated better. Should have told you what I needed instead of just expecting you to know. We were both learning. We were 25 years old, trying to build a life and a company and figure out who we were. We didn't know what we were doing. No, we didn't. For what it's worth, he said quietly. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. The company, the money, all of it, none of it compares to what we had, what I threw away. I looked down at my coffee. I should go. Visiting hours start soon. Of course. He stood when I did. Maya? If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, please don't wait 3 years to call, okay? I nodded. Thank you, James. For everything. Thank you for using the card. Thank you for letting me help, even if I didn't get to be there in person. I turned to leave, then stopped. James? Yeah? Would you want to meet for coffee again? Maybe next week? His face lit up in a way that made him look exactly like the man I'd married. I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. Just coffee. Just talking. Just coffee, he agreed. I'll text you. My father spent another week in the hospital. Every day, I sat with him, reading aloud from his favorite books, telling him about work, about Nina, about everything except James. On the 5th day, he finally asked, Have you seen him, James? We had coffee. And nothing. We talked. He explained about the money. He apologized. Do you still love him? I looked at my father, at his knowing eyes. I don't know. Maybe I never stopped. But love isn't always enough, is it? We were wrong for each other. Were. Past tense. Dad. Maya, I'm an old man who just survived a heart attack. Humor me. He shifted in his bed, wincing slightly. When your mother died, people told me I should move on, find someone new. They said holding on to her memory would keep me stuck in the past. You never dated anyone else. No, because they were wrong. Loving her, remembering her, keeping her in my heart that didn't keep me stuck. It kept her alive. It made every day meaningful because I was living for both of us. He looked at me seriously. But Maya, if your mother had survived, if we'd gone through something hard and separated, and then years later we realized we'd both changed, both grown, I'd like to think I'd be smart enough to try again. It's not that simple. It never is. But you have a second chance here. Don't let pride or fear make you waste it. I thought about that conversation a lot over the next few weeks. I met James for coffee twice more, then once for lunch. Then for a walk through Central Park on a cold afternoon where the last leaves were falling from the trees. We talked about everything. About his therapy, about my career, about the life we'd built separately. He told me about the company, about stepping back from day-to-day operations, about discovering he actually enjoyed having hobbies. I told him about my father's recovery, about the promotion I'd gotten at work, about learning that asking for help wasn't the same as being weak. We didn't talk about us, not directly, but it was there in every conversation, every shared smile, every comfortable silence. 3 months after my father's heart attack, James called me on a Tuesday evening. What are you doing right now? Ordering takeout. Why? Don't. I'm outside your building. Come down. What? James? Just trust me. 5 minutes. I grabbed my coat and went downstairs. He was standing on the sidewalk next to a sleek black car, holding a brown paper bag. Get in, he said, grinning. Where are we going? You'll see. He drove us to the Brooklyn Bridge Park. It was nearly empty, the city lights reflecting off the water. He led me to a bench overlooking the Manhattan skyline and opened the paper bag. Ramen, he said, pulling out 2 steaming containers. From that place on Street Marks we used to go to. Remember? I laughed. Our broke newlywed staple. Exactly. He handed me a container and chopsticks. I wanted to remind you that I remember. I remember when all we had was each other and dreams and really good ramen. We ate in silence for a minute, watching the boats pass on the river. Maya, he said finally, I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not asking you to move in with me or marry me again or anything like that. But I am asking if you'd give me a chance to show you who I am now. To see if maybe who we are now might work better than who we were then. I looked at him, at the man who'd never stopped caring, who'd quietly made sure I'd be okay even when I'd pushed him away. What does that look like? I asked quietly. Dates. Real ones, where I show up on time and my phone stays in my pocket, getting to know each other again, slowly. No pressure, no expectations, just seeing if this second chance is worth taking. I thought about my father's words. About second chances, about the difference between holding on to the past and being brave enough to try again with eyes wide open. Okay, I said. Okay? Okay. Let's try. His smile was brilliant. Yeah? Yeah. But James, I need you to know I'm not the same person I was. I'm stronger now, more independent. I won't lose myself again. I don't want you to. I fell in love with strong, independent Maya. I just forgot to show up for her. I won't make that mistake again. And I'm not weak for using that card. For accepting help. God, no. Maya, that took more courage than anything. Letting go of pride when everything in you is screaming to stay stubborn? That's strength. I leaned my head on his shoulder, something I hadn't done in 3 years. He wrapped his arm around me carefully, like I might disappear if he held on too tight. Just so we're clear, I said. I'm paying you back. Every penny. Maya, I'm serious. I don't care if it takes 10 years. That money is a loan, not a gift. He was quiet for a moment. Then, what if instead of paying me back, you let me invest it in something for both of us? What do you mean? What if we started a foundation? For families dealing with medical emergencies, to help people who are facing the same impossible choice you faced. We could call it the Robert Chen Foundation. I lifted my head to look at him. You're serious. Completely. You could run it. Use your organizational skills, your heart. Make sure other people don't have to choose between pride and survival. I felt tears welling up. He'd love that. So is it a yes? On one condition. You help run it too. We do it together. Together, he agreed. We sat there for a long time, watching the city lights, eating ramen that had gone cold, talking about the future instead of the past. My father came home from the hospital 2 weeks later. He was weak but recovering, tackling physical therapy with the same stubborn determination he'd brought to everything in life. I told him about the foundation over dinner one night. We're calling it the Robert Chen Foundation, I said, to help families with medical expenses. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm proud of you, Maya. Not for the foundation, though that's wonderful. I'm proud of you for being brave enough to accept help when you needed it. That's a lesson it took me too long to learn. Better late than never, right? Right. He paused. And James? Are you two? We're taking it slow. Dating. Seeing if who we are now works better than who we were then. And does it? I thought about our dates, about the way he showed up exactly when he said he would, about how he'd started leaving his phone in his car during dinner, about the way he listened now. Really listened. Instead of just waiting for his turn to talk. Yeah, Dad. I think it does. 6 months later, the foundation opened its doors. We'd helped 12 families with emergency medical costs. My father recovered enough to volunteer, spent 2 days a week at the office, reviewing applications and talking to families who reminded him of us. James and I still lived separately, still took things slow, but we talked every day, had dinner 3 times a week, spent weekends together, sometimes in the city, sometimes at the beach house in the Hamptons that he'd bought, and immediately asked me to help decorate. We were building something new, not trying to resurrect what we'd had before, but creating something better, stronger, built on who we'd become instead of who we'd been. One evening, sitting in his apartment, working on foundation paperwork while he cooked dinner, he looked over at me. Maya? Thank you. For what? For giving me this. For giving us this second chance. For being brave enough to let go of pride when it mattered. I set down my pen and walked over to him. Thank you for never giving up on me. Even when I gave up on us. He kissed me, soft and sweet, and I thought about the black card that sat in my wallet now. I still hadn't thrown it away, but it wasn't a symbol of failure anymore. It was a reminder that sometimes accepting help, accepting love, accepting second chances that took more strength than doing everything alone. My father was right. Pride was just fear dressed up fancy, and I was done being afraid.